right, well, welcome everyone. We've got about a minute till we get started here with our first time home buyers seminar. Thank you for joining us and taking some time to learn about this extremely important process, number one. And number two, really sometimes can feel overwhelming process. So we know in Zoom world, we'll have people jumping on here. It takes a little time to get on here and coming home from work and getting ready, but I always start on time. So we will jump in because you were here on time, and to respect that. My name is Brendan Bartic with the Bartic Group at Keller Williams Real Estate. I've been selling residential real estate, helping buyers and sellers for about 20 years now. And during that time, I've learned how to make this process as simple as possible and also as stress-free and enjoyable as possible. So the goal of this evening's seminar is going to be to answer any questions that anyone has about the buying process, give you a really good rundown of exactly what to expect, things that could come up, concerns, everything that you're going to want to know. And maybe you're not quite ready to buy now. You're going, hey, look, I'm a year out. I'm 2 years out. I've got some credit issues that I'm working on. We'll talk about credit. We'll talk about how much money you need. We're going to get all of those questions unfolded so we can kind of demystify this process and you can understand how you can really start to build wealth and long-term real estate strategy by just getting started. So a couple of things to make this a lot easier for you is if you have questions, you can either raise your hand. There's a hand function there on your little toolbar. You can raise your hand. You can put something in the chat box, and I'll be monitoring the chat box. If you go, hey, look, I don't want to, voice it. I just want to type it in because I have a question. Let me also say there are no stupid questions, zero. All of us started at some point. I still have people that have been working with me selling real estate for a while that still have questions all the time that I go, great, let's sort these out. So don't think that there's any wrong question here, but just make sure that you raise your hand. Let's sort it out now so you can leave here feeling good. So about 6:02, I think we're safe to go ahead and get started. So let's jump in. And we're going to start. Let me share the screen here. There we go. So, whoops, there we go. All right. So the easiest way to think about this is in 6 easy steps. And when we start to think about the home ownership process, you can see there that it says step 1, hire your agent. Obviously, who you align yourself during this process is going to be absolutely critical because this might be one of the largest purchases of your lifetime and one of maybe the greatest investments you ever have. So you first of all want to make sure that you hire the correct agent and professional. Number 2, we're going to secure pre-approved financing. So in this session, I'm going to take you through what that means, the ins and outs of financing, what to be looking out for, what to be nervous about, what the difference between pre-approved is and pre-qualified, which there is a big difference there. Number 3, we're going to find you your dream home or dream investment property, or at least a property that you really like a lot. Next, we'll make an offer and negotiate that offer. So a lot of what goes into this is you always make your money on a real estate purchase when you purchase it, not when you sell it. So with analytics and information and data and experience, all of those things are going to go into making sure you have the best purchase situation possible. Number 5, get the home inspected and negotiate any repairs, right? So there's a lot that goes into the inspection process. And then number 6, close and become a homeowner. Now, there's a few other pieces in here after the get home inspected and negotiate repairs. Depending upon how you're purchasing the property, there would also be an appraisal. There's some title things that I'm going to take you through, making sure we have clear title. But basically, these 6 steps are what's going to lead you to owning your first property. All right, so let's jump in. All right, so home buying myths, and there are a lot of them, right? A lot of times people look at the home buying process and say, you know what, I just can't afford to buy a home right now. And that is the biggest myth. And that's why it's number one, because you don't know what you can or cannot do until, first of all, you speak with a lender and figure out the financial situation. Number two, it's usually not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So you can get you on a path to home ownership at some point. It might not just be this second, but if we don't start looking at this and then analyzing, maybe we need to do some credit repair. Maybe we need to put an extra $75 a month away to make sure that we can get to the amount that you need to be able to do this. There are grant programs. There are affordable housing programs. There is such a world out there for any buyer to be able to move into this process, but we can't move forward if we don't know where we're at. And so we're really going to make sure everyone has a lot of clarity with that process. Okay. Then this is probably one of my favorite slides and my favorite ways of explaining this home buying process, which is the difference between owning versus renting. So if you purchase a home for $250,000 and pay $1,200 a month towards your mortgage, in the total over 30 years, you're going to own that asset and it's going to grow in value over $435,000. If you're renting and you're paying $1,200 a month toward your landlord's mortgage, making them rich, mind you, you getting squat diddly from it, over 30 years, you're paying in $432,000 in rent and you own nothing. So whatever you want to scale that on, that's the real scary part. And when people ask me a lot of times, well, Brendan, how do you build wealth and what does that look like? One of the biggest conversations that I constantly have with them is your personal residence is your biggest wealth building leverage tool to start with. There's nothing else on earth. You can read every statistic, everything out there that's going to give you an advantage to be able to not make someone else rich, right? At the end of the day, that's what we're trying to accomplish. So that's a big piece, right? Now, as we go into the next thing, the next home buying myth, I should wait until the market gets better. So this myth, what we mean by market getting better is that could mean one of two things. Either right now, it feels like the market's so aggressive and there's very limited inventory and, oh man, I'm going to have to do a competing offer and all of these things. So maybe I'll wait till there's more inventory and wait till the market calms down a little bit. Well, if you do that, there's two major concerns that we face all the time. Number one is you don't know when the market's going to shift and change, meaning that it could continue to go up. I had people ask me say the same phrase to me 3 years ago, and now home prices have gone up and home values have gone up another 14%. 14% in 3 years. So you really make your money when you buy and identifying the right property, having a licensed professional show you what could work and what couldn't work. But the second piece of that is we also don't know what's going to happen with mortgage rates. So if you're watching the markets and you're understanding what's happening with inflation, or you're not understanding, you just go, I don't get really what's going on. Rates will continue to rise. And when your interest rates rise, you have less buying power. And that can severely affect your affordability for a current home, which means you're either going to have to buy a smaller home or a home further away from where you really want to be. So this still comes down to talk to the professional, make sure you have a guidance or have guidance in this and an advisor talking you through this process so you don't have any of these concerns. Okay. So next, let's talk about why you should buy now versus waiting. Mortgage rates are still remarkably low, which is, a fantastic place to be. Again, your long-term investment grows, equity buildup, value appreciation, debt pay down. So all of those things. Remember, when you buy a home, you're paying down that debt, you're creating equity in that asset, which you can use in the future to draw on for either your family, your personal use, or When you decide to sell, if you do, you can use that to upgrade into the next property. That's impossible to do if you're renting. Then pride of ownership. So the next big piece that I think is something that people don't talk enough about is when you own a home, you just feel different. You have that pride. You now own something in this world that no matter what happens, unless you stop paying on it or you screw up your mortgage or something like that, right? That's yours. You can do whatever you want to it. You want to put in, you want to paint the bathroom purple and rip out the sinks and put in a Tweety Bird toilet, which I've seen. You can knock yourself out and have a toilet that looks like Tweety Bird and enjoy that every day for yourself. You can't do a lot of that if you're renting. It's not yours. You don't have that ability. Sense of community, right? So go out, wave to your neighbors. Hey, buddy, how you doing? How's it going? Yeah, barbecues. When you're a renter, everybody's like, who's the new renter? Right? They spit on you, right? We want to have a sense of community. Freedom to customize, we talked about that. Tax benefits, right? So there's so many different things as a homeowner that we get to receive in benefits as far as write-offs and things like that. It's a huge piece, again, back to building wealth, right? So all of those reasons, but the biggest one that I still think that I talk about is me personally, I don't want to make someone else rich. At some point, you have to decide to pull that cord and go, I'm stop making this other person rich for paying off their mortgage and their debt. I'm going to start building my own financial freedom. All right. Number 3, I can't afford to buy a home because my credit sucks. Right. So let's just say that your credit is awful. Right. And I can talk from experience. I went through this. I wasn't smart when I was younger. I didn't pay taxes. I screwed up a lot of things that I did wrong. And I was like, man, I'm never going to be able to fix this. Total myth, right? First of all, there's a lot of programs to help improve your credit with the right lender and the right professionals. Number 2, there's not a set standard credit score that you need to have across the board. It completely depends on the situation, the property, and having a licensed real estate professional can guide you through that and then connect you with the right service or lender that can help guide you on the path to fixing it so that you can get to where you want to go. So it's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when. That's the whole thing you have to think about in this process. All right. So now let's get that money. How do we get that money so we can go buy the house? Well, there's a couple of things in securing pre-approved financing and how to select a lender and get pre-approved. Now, what you're going to want to think about is what I always say to my clients is, well, what type of financing package do you want to utilize to purchase this property? I'll talk about a few here. First of all, you can buy the home for cash or property for cash. So this is either you came into some money, you go, mommy, daddy, uncle, give me the money, somebody give me the money, and I buy the property for cash. The second piece is that we're going to get financing. Now, there's generally 3 types of traditional financing. We've got VA, which means that you are a veteran and you qualify for Veteran Associate Benefits. FHA, which is the Federal Housing Association. And then we've got traditional, or what we call conventional financing. So with VA, you can put as much as or as little as 0 down and finance 100% of that purchase, right? And so if you've served or you have those benefits, we can definitely talk to you about how to maximize them. FHA just means that the government is going to be backing that loan. So they're going to be willing to take more risk on the loan and you can have a lower deposit. So on FHA properties, you could have as low as 3.5% down. There's a number of different programs that are probably even lower than that, but that's about traditional. And then you have conventional financing, which is going to usually be 10%, 20% or more, where you're securing that loan with the bank going, I'm going to give more money down. That's going to give me a better rate. I'm not going to have to pay mortgage insurance, meaning that the insurance I'm putting on this loan because I'm borrowing so much money makes the lender nervous that since I'm putting a bigger deposit down, I get a better rate generally on average. and better terms over the course of time. So those are the general. Now, the other type of financing that there is there's also a financing called seller-held financing. That's rare in this kind of market where the seller would hold the note, and meaning that they become the bank, and then you would pay them, and they would receive the interest payments for allowing you to borrow that money from them basically until you pay off that property. Usually on seller-assisted financing, we see people, they'll negotiate with like their neighbor, or maybe you want to buy the house from your uncle or your mom. You go, Mom, hook me up, like you're the bank. I don't want to have to qualify for all this stuff. You would pay her over a period of time with a balloon payment, maybe 5 years, and then you would transition that into a regular loan, and then they would be out of the picture. So it's kind of an in-between to allow people the ability to get into a property. But right now you don't see that a lot because the market is so hot. All right. So now let's talk about getting pre-approved versus pre-qualified. So pre-qualification, right? It's not a formal or lengthy process. You can talk to one of our preferred lenders and they'll tell you very quickly what you can qualify for. Now, it's also not a commitment from a letter. It's just saying, hey, look, based on the general picture of what you're telling us, this is how much you could buy in today's market. All right. So it's a rough estimate of how much you can borrow. The pre-approval is a formal application. So you're going to go through the whole process. You might have to show them tax records and give them all of your stuff. You're going to get a formal commitment from the lender going, based on everything we've seen, we're going to give you, Susie, $400,000, and we're going to allow you to borrow that money from us. It also states how much you're borrowing and at what rate you're going to pay on that interest rate. And then it makes you a stronger buyer in multiple offer situations. If you have a pre-approval versus a pre-qualification, when you go to make your offer, the lender is going to call that agent and say, look, Susie is ready to rock and roll. I mean, we've gone through everything. We've qualified her up and down and approved her all the way through. And I guarantee you this loan will close, Mr. Seller. So take her offer. And that's power. And that's what we want to make sure we have is power when we're making offers. Okay, so pre-approval, better than pre-qual, but pre-qual a great step to get started. All right, so how do you choose a lender? How do you choose a a real estate lender? And what's the difference between a lender, a bank, a credit union, all of that stuff? All right, well, let's talk about it. A lender traditionally is going to be someone that obviously borrows and lends out the money. Now you have a mortgage broker, which is a person that can go to all kind of different money lenders and really be able to give you the best rate. So traditionally, our recommendation is that you want to align yourself with a local mortgage broker that can really give you all the services, everything, but is here and can take your call and will answer the phone. If you go and let's say you go to what's one of those ones, Bankrate or Rocket Mortgage or something like that. The issue with these bigger companies is, number one, they're not shopping all the rates. They're only using their rates and they're only their loan products. Number two, they're not here locally. You can't walk into their office and have a conversation with them. And when push comes to shove during a closing and you're working with Rocket Mortgage, it's somebody sitting in Nebraska at a cubicle, and they could care 2 flips less if your deal gets to the finish line. So it is important that if I can call up my lender and go, Annie, look, what's going on? We need to close tomorrow. And she's going to go, hey, I got you, no problem. It's going to be 7:30 at night, and we're going to feel safe and comfortable tomorrow, and I know it's all going to happen. Nothing better than that feeling. Just remember, all these big box companies are paying all this money on TV and radio advertising because they make a lot of money off that loan. So always think about that. Ask for referrals, right? So if you found somebody that's owned a home and they've really felt comfortable with their lender, it's always fine to talk to 2 or 3 different options, 2 to 3 different mortgage brokers. And your real estate professional can obviously refer someone that they trust because they've done transactions with them and know that they can actually get it to the finish line. All right. Then prepare a loan application and get pre-approved, and then determine what you want to pay and select a loan option. So that lender is going to guide you through and say, look, based on all of your finances, you could afford or be qualified up to this amount. Now, that might not be the amount that you want to actually pay, right? So there's a big difference here of what do I qualify for versus how much do I actually want to have as my monthly payment. So then a factor that we have to take into consideration is taxes, HOA fees. If you're going to be in an HOA, maybe you're buying a condo, all of these different things, you're going to want to have the full picture on all of your financial situation, because it's not just a mortgage payment. There's several different things that might be wrapped into that, and you want to make sure you feel comfortable. The goal for this is really to make sure that when you move forward, that you're going to start seeing your dream home. And this is what happens to every buyer. And I always warn this. Could you buy it? Yes. Should you buy it? Maybe, maybe not. Only you know that in your finances. You're always going to feel safer and more comfortable on the ladder. So just give that thought, right? You want this to be comfortable. You want to feel safe in buying it. It's always going to feel a little scary, right? Because it's like, oh man, like I gotta do this now, and I'm on the hook for this mortgage payment, and yikes. But you're already doing it for rent right now anyway. Unless everyone on here has been evicted multiple times from your rental, then you pretty much understand how making payments works. Why not make them for yourself instead of someone else? Cool. All right, good. I must be doing good. No questions. I'm pretty good at this, so that just makes me feel good about it. If you do, like I said, let us know. All right. Now, a big question that we get: should I buy new construction and either build my home or buy a prefabricated home that's already in process, or a spec home, or should I buy resale? What's the right answer? Well, let's think about that for a second. Okay. Here's the analogy that I often give all the time is, if you're buying new construction, you are buying a product that you're going to have you're going to be able to have your, depending on where it's at in the process, you're going to have the ability to customize this home the way you want and do certain things to it, depending on the builder of what you like and how you want it done. The drawback on that is there's going to be a premium price on that. So just like if you go to purchase a car, a new car, brand new off the lot, is generally going to cost more. It's going to have all the latest bells and whistles, all the latest features. But as soon as you drive it off the lot, it's not going to be worth as much as that moment. The same thing goes with a resale home. If I go and find a nice resale home, or not the same thing, when I go to find a nice resale home, I have the ability to upgrade that home, number one, which is also going to either take money equity or sweat equity for you to improve. But over time, each one of them, it's going to depend upon your investment into that property and which way you want to get the money back out. So right now, we're seeing two things happen in our current market. For a lot of buyers, it's easier to buy a new construction property because it doesn't exist yet, and you're not having to fight over resale properties with competing buyers. So it might take 6 months, 8 months, it might take a long time for that new construction to come to fruition, or it could be done in 3 weeks. It just depends. People fall out of deals all the time. So you're really just looking at this and going, can I stick around? Do I need to move this second, right? And can I coordinate the new construction build out with my lease that I'm currently in, right? If you're currently renting. The resale property, you could make an offer today, be under contract, and close in 30 days and be in that home. So there's a lot of pluses and minuses to both sides. I think it has a lot to do with personal preference, your timing, and then looking at each one as an individual estimate. So what I think about, and what I want everyone to really start thinking about, is you've got to remember, you're buying a home first and foremost for you to live in and enjoy. Then if it's your first private residence, then second as an investment tool. Now, some of you on here might be going, I'm going to buy it as an investment and I don't care what it's like to live in, and I'm just doing this as a step up. Okay. Well, if that's the case, then as long as you're confident with your strategy, there's nothing wrong with that. But remember, your personal residence is also your home. So you're going to want to think about that process, or not even that process. You're going to want to think about, you're going to be waking up every morning in it. I've watched buyers in the past go, I'm buying this strictly for investment purposes. They call me up in 6 months. They go, I got to sell this thing. I can't live here. It's terrible. Right? You still got to live there. It might be the greatest investment on earth, but if you got to, lock and load every time you got to come out the front door to survive, that might not be the best situation, but it's a hell of an investment. So it just depends on your strategy. But remember, buying your first home, a lot of us, my first place was a dumpster. It's all I could afford. Then I used the equity that I took out of that, moved into a nicer place. And so you can start to roll it into it. You just have to make sure you understand that it's a tool to get you where you want to go. But if you're looking at it solely as an investment, it might not be the best idea, right? It's home ownership. You're always going to make a good investment on it as time goes on, because you're building equity every single day. All right. That was pretty confusing, but I hope you get it. All right. All right. New construction and option pros and cons. So again, features, again, you have to add to the price. So when you add to new construction, there's a lot of extra costs in there. Future of neighborhood uncertain. It's not proven what that neighborhood's going to be like. They could have built it on an old, gas station area, and there could be soil issues. There could be all kinds of problems you don't know. So that's scary. It's an outlying area, no nearby amenities yet, no firm closing date, because again, it's up in the air when you're going to close. The pros is it's new. You get a home builder warranty for a minimum of a year, and then generally much further past that, depending upon the construction. You get to pick your lot, features, and design, lock in the price, and sometimes there are good deals. All right. All right. So let's move on to making offers and negotiating with sellers. So whatever buyers should know before starting the home buying process. So when I think about making offers and negotiating sellers, number one is you're not necessarily making the offer. What you're doing is working with your real estate professional, and you're going to be they're going to be guiding you through this entire process. They're going to call the real estate agent and ask the seller's agent all kinds of questions. They're going to know comps. They're going to run different scenarios on this. They're going to read the seller's property disclosure. They're going to do all of these things. And from that data, they're going to be able to talk to you about what makes sense for an offer. Now, right now in our market, we have a couple of things that are happening because of the low inventory. We have strategies that are very custom to individual buyers that will get your offer accepted. There's things that we're doing right now that your professional will take you through in detail, from appraisal gap coverage to waiving the inspection to putting down hard earnest money. Right now you're going, huh? And what? If you're new to this, your licensed agent will take you through every little piece of that to tell you, hey, look, based on your situation, based on where the market is, and based on all of our options, the most logical decision here and what the market's telling us to win this offer, we need to be at this price. We need to structure the offer this way. We need to give the seller these things to get our offer accepted. And then they go, any questions? You have the decision, of course, to not do that or do it, but your professional is going to help guide you to make sure that you're making the right decision. And every single house could be a completely different scenario. Every house could be a different scenario. So we just have to be very careful of making sure when we're looking at this, it's property specific, right? It's going to be very property specific. All right. All right, cool. All right. So let's talk about making an offer. First of all, price. Offer must reflect the true market value of the home. The terms, there's 6 basic categories addressing timing and financial conditions. We'll talk about those. And then contingencies, often referred to as conditions that allow you to opt out of a deal if the home has a problem. All right. So price. Offer must reflect true market value of the home. Well, price completely depends on competition. So as demand goes up, prices go up. Demand goes down, prices go down. So let's talk about that. When you think about what really controls market value, we know that it really comes down to a couple of factors. If there's less competition because a house backs up to railroad tracks, well, then you're going to have more negotiating power because there'll be less competition. If a house comes out and it's the most beautiful home on earth, sitting on a beautiful park, and everybody wants to buy it, that's going to affect the price, driving it up. Now, the terms, we're going to go through those here in a second, right? With addressing the timing and the financial considerations, as we look at those, to simplify it as best I can, is all we're thinking about when we think about offering the correct terms is right now, generally, what do we need to do to make this deal work so the seller selects my offer over someone else's? What terms do we need to make it appealing enough for that to happen? And then conditions and contingencies. So in a normal real estate market, and I'll break this down as easy as I can, the traditional process would be that you make an offer and you have what's called earnest money. So earnest money is going to be 1 to 3% of the list price of the home, generally speaking. Now, it can be less than that, it can be more than that. It's solely dependent upon what the seller wants for you to put down as a deposit to take that home off the market while you go through the lending process. All right. So general terms, you would make an offer, seller would accept offer, and within a 2 to 3 day period, you would deposit said earnest money. So let's just run this scenario. So let's say the house is, you make an offer on a $500,000 house, earnest money is $10,000. Now, you might be saying to yourself, well, I don't have $10,000 for earnest money. Well, you can offer very little in earnest money. You don't have to offer that full amount, but the seller might not move forward with your offer because they don't feel secure enough in taking it off of the market. So there's not a set guideline, but it really comes down to you trying to win the offer. Then once you're under contract, traditionally you would have 5 to 7 days to complete your home inspection. So we'd connect you with a licensed inspector, you would go through the inspection process. And during that time, if you found something out about the property that you didn't want to move forward with, you could cancel the contract and receive your earnest money back and move forward to a different property. Now, in this market, a lot of times we're having to waive that ability because we're competing and we want to win the offer. So you're going to have to be very diligent on the front side going, I feel comfortable with this house enough to make an offer, waive the inspection, and basically as soon as you go forward, your earnest money, that $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 is at risk. But if you don't make that risk, you might not get any home at all. So all of this is your real estate professional is going to guide you through the risk versus rewards and what you can do and what you can't do. And then you have the ability to feel comfortable of what do you do next to move forward. Okay. So then once we get past inspection, the next piece is we have the appraisal process. So the bank is going to send an appraiser to go, look, we're giving you this amount, or we want to let you borrow this amount of money. We need to make sure that the appraisal, that when we send an appraiser out there, that we truly believe that the property is worth that amount. So if after you buy the house in the first 6 months, you go, you know what, screw this house, I'm moving to Brazil and I'm just running away and I don't really care and I'm going to stop making payments and I'm over it and I have a nervous breakdown. Well, the bank has to take that property and then resell it. So they need to have an appraised value on the front side of going, we feel comfortable with our risk of doing that. So when we have to go into foreclosure and take this property back, we know what we're looking at. So that's why the appraisal process is very critical, especially when you're getting a loan. And your licensed professional will talk to you about all kinds of different ways to make sure that the appraisal process goes as smooth as possible, and certain things that you may need to do to get the seller to feel secure about the appraisal, meaning gap coverage, all these different things. So your offer will be accepted versus someone else's. Okay. Then after we get past appraisal, it's pretty much home sweet home. You're getting to final loan approval, and then you're heading straight to closing, which is always a fun day. So that's the quick version of that, but your agent will definitely explain all that with you in detail. So when we talked about that inspection process, let's talk about what to look for during the home inspection, okay? So here's the things that we like to think about. And when we say don't sweat the small stuff, it's the big stuff that matters. Well, everything, when we're looking at the home, we want to make sure that everything is important to a certain degree. It's just a matter of what's going to get us to the finish line with the seller. So the way that I try to always present this is switch gears and think that you own the property. So you've been the seller, you're the owner of a home, and you've owned that home for 20 years, right? Maybe you bought it new construction, maybe you bought it back in whenever, but you've owned this home for 20 years. New buyer comes into the property once, because you're ready to move down to Arizona and chill out and retire, whatever it is. They come into the property and they have their inspection. Well, this property is 20 years old. There's going to be chipped paint. There's going to be a spot on the carpet. There's going to be a light bulb that's out. It's 20 years that they've owned it, and they might have owned it. Some houses we sell here are 120 years plus old. So there's going to be these things that are going to be a concern because you're not buying new construction in a resale situation. So what we're looking for is what is going to be a big ticket item in the future, and then you making a decision with the guidance of your real estate professional if you should move forward or not. So what we're looking at is cracks or crumbling in the foundation. So one of the biggest expenses that you'll see in a home is if the property has big cracks. And I'm not talking, I walk into every basement, I've been in thousands of homes. Almost every basement in Colorado has cracks in the basement floor. That is not a major issue because homes are going to settle no matter what. And there's always going to be minor cracking of some form or fashion. What we're talking about is, especially crumbling, means that there's probably a water issue. Something's causing it behind the scenes to really deteriorate. And then you're looking at a bigger ticket item. You're also, when you're looking at major cracks, I mean, if the whole house is separating, then yes, that's going to be a bigger concern. And again, your licensed professional will help guide you through that, okay? Water stains in ceilings, obviously, right? If there's water stain in the ceiling, you're gonna wanna see what the history was. Did the bathtub leak from above? Did they get it fixed? Is there mold? All of those things. Faded or worn shingles. So roofs are another big ticket item. Plumbing or electrical problems, right? We go down into the basement and it looks like somebody MacGyvered these wires together and the whole place is about to light up like a Christmas tree. Yeah, we want to make sure that it's safe, right? We call those health and safety issues. I don't want anything to catch on fire, anybody to get electrocuted, anybody to have any issues there. And then again, mold. We don't have a lot of termite issues here. Some of our mountain properties, maybe in my years, have had a little bit of concern. But what's missing from this list that we have a lot here of is what's called radon. So radon is a gas that builds up from the soil in your basement. And we want to test for that and make sure that if the property does have radon, you're going to be living in the basement, that you're going to be having a circulation system pump that radon gas out of the basement to the exterior of the home and pump fresh air in. And again, your licensed professional will be able to guide you through all of those pieces. And then lastly, dun, 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 we get to go to closing day. Probably one of the greatest days you'll remember. I mean, except for probably having kids and other great stuff, but it's up there in the top 10, I would say, right? But you're going to remember that feeling of going, I really think about it like really where you kind of feel like you're really a citizen of this great nation, right? Where it's like, I'm now a part of this history of America. I own a piece of this world, and I don't know how to explain it. There's not really a better feeling than that. Now, there's some things we got to prepare for on closing day, right? So you got to make sure you have photo ID, and you got to bring the certified funds, and you've got to have all these things. Don't worry, everyone's going to tell you what to do before the closing. You're going to know well ahead of time. What I don't think a lot of people tell you to start thinking about is, there's a lot of, our real estate partners do, but we've got to make sure now you're going to enter that home. So electric's got to be switched over. Do you have cable set up? Are all of these things ready to rock and roll? Looks like I'm frozen. Did I unfreeze? I unfroze. Whew. Okay, good. I'm back. All right. So you want to make sure the trash is set up. I had one rental property that I forgot to set up the trash pickup, and that was not good. My tenant was not pleased. So you got to start thinking about all of those little pieces, and then some things too, like was the sprinkler shut off for winter? If it had a swamp cooler, does that need to be unwrapped? These things you've got to start to think about, and then building that calendar to make sure you're ready to move forward as a homeowner. And then what you're going to get is the settlement statement. It's going to tell you everything about what you own, the mortgage, your interest rates, how long it's going to take to pay off, all your penalties, clean title. So what title means is that you have, just like a car title, you have clean title to this, and then you're going to have what's called title insurance. So traditionally in the state of Colorado, the seller pays for your title insurance policy. That's just an insurance policy stating that if after you own this home, that seller's crazy ex-wife comes back at him and says, how did you sell that house? I was obviously in the title chain and the title company messed up and didn't see this. They're going to have to pay out that ex-wife's claim. That ex-wife can't come after you. So title insurance policy is very important to make sure that that you're protected with the chain of title moving forward. All right. So, boy, did I nail that? 4 minutes left. So any questions at all about the home buying process, pre-qualification, timing, market, anything real estate related that I can help with in these last few minutes? Excellent. So now let's talk next steps. So now, tomorrow or this evening, you're going to want to take the next step to get you into this process. So connect with your licensed real estate professional. If you don't have one, we have amazing partners here at the Bartic Group that are willing to help you at any time. They'll get you connected with the lending process to really get that started. And to be honest, sometimes it's just good to get out and look at some houses, right? Sometimes we just want to start getting out there and looking at some properties, right? Danny Kim's got a question. Welcome, Danny. Thanks for joining us. So regarding mortgage rates, how high do you anticipate them increasing the rest of this year and moving forward? So excellent question, right? And we're getting this question quite a bit. From everything that we can see, they're saying a minimum of 3/4 of a point to a full point. So what that means is, let's say if the rates are 5% today, and I always explain this very clearly, if rates are at 5% today, and right now you could qualify for a $100,000 loan, when rates go to 6%, you might only be able to qualify for a $90,000 loan. So think about it, for every percent increase in interest rate, you're going to be losing 10% in buying power. So that's why the timing really does matter. Now, in the next 2 to 3 years, who knows, right? As I said, even where rates are at now, they're still way lower than they were even 10, 15 years ago. But the rates matter, but think about this, and rates do matter. I'm not saying they don't. You can always refi a home in the future when rates change, right? That's another big piece. So it's not like you're locked into, sometimes I was the same way as a first-time home buyer. I was so freaked out about rates because I was like, if I don't get this right, I'm screwed. No, not the case, right? You can refinance. So when rates drop, and I mean, I've seen people refinance their own 5, 6, 7 times over the course of owning it. If rates are at 5.5% now and drop to 3.5% in 2 years, you're going to refinance that property. So you're going to go back, you're going to take a new loan on it at a lower rate, usually even at certain times get cash out of it and things if you're going to use it for whatever you want to do, and then refinance that into the property at a lower rate based upon where rates are at that time. Said rates a lot, didn't I? So great question, Danny. Yeah, that is a great piece, but it's not forever, but it's always good to get in, of course, before they keep going up, because during that time, you're going to pay less until you have the ability to refinance it. Excellent. Any other questions about the home buying process? All right. So then if there's not, so like I said, talk to your real estate professional. If you're still wondering what you can qualify for, they'll start that process for you. Now, the other question I get is it going to ding my credit if I find out what I'm qualified for? Not necessarily. Again, the lender will advise you of a pre-qual versus pre-approval. Based on relative information that you tell them, they can give you a pretty good estimate of where you would be for being able to purchase and all of those things. And then next, we'll get you set up on a buyer consultation with one of our preferred real estate partners. They'll take you through an in-depth process, get you set up on our custom proprietary software, so you're seeing the most latest real estate properties that are showing up. Then also, what our team is really good at is once we have a profile of what you're looking for as a buyer, we don't wait for the property to hit the market. We have a huge database. We're going to start making phone calls to the neighborhood that you like. We're going to go find you that property instead of just going, I sure hope a property shows up today that I can compete with all these other buyers on. So there's a lot that goes into it. The question again comes down to, it's not a matter of if you do this, it's when, but the longer you wait, the more you're making someone else rich. So let's all get rich together. Let's invest in our future, and feel free to call us at any time. And I thank you for spending this time with me.